Okay, so all the walls are on our ground plan now. Of course, that's by no way finished. We haven't even assigned any doors or windows, haven't finished the furniture on the inside or anything. But with most of your designs, probably if you import a sketch that you've done by hand and then you retrace it in a CAD drawing, you probably realize that there's a few things that are slightly off, or you're not really happy with how things turn out. And rather than getting lost in details in these CAD drawings, because here you can zoom in almost infinitively and you can really get lost in setting up those windows properly and whatnot, which is probably not the most crucial and urgent thing to do at this stage. So what I would suggest is that we have a look at how to publish and how to export these kind of drawings as a PDF, so that you can then go on, print it out, and start sketching on top of what you have done already. So when we want to create a PDF or a layout, I'm going to navigate with that right hand side window that we can see here, which is called the organizer. We've now been drawing or been working in a ground floor, within the project map, which is perfectly fine to get started. But as soon as you have a little bit of a drawing there already, we should start having a look at how to create a view map, because there's a quite important difference between these two setups, and we'll have a closer look at that. But we'll kind of work from the back out. So when we click here onto that layout book, that's where all your pages are kind of set up, all the layouts that you have created. And I've already made one that's called ground floor 1 to 50. But we'll quickly have a look at how to change these sort of things. Probably if you had opened up the ArchiCAD template thingy, there's going to be heaps and heaps of preset layouts. If you are like me and you don't like them, feel free to delete them. By the way, as you can see, I can't delete that one layout here now, because for some odd reason, ArchiCAD always requires me to have at least one layout in that box. So as soon as I'm creating a second one, let's click here on to create layout. We don't care about these settings for now, just for the sake of showing you. Now all of a sudden that delete button becomes an option. Not quite sure why that is that way, but yeah, we'll just leave it. Let's assume we want to have an A3 landscape layout. ArchiCAD has already prepared something. Of course they have. There's a few elements that are sitting on here. You can see that here, that the master layouts, it's a little bit like in InDesign where you have master layouts. I don't want that, I don't need that, I'm just deleting it here. And who knows, maybe I want to have a title on all of them. Let's call it the test project. Amazing name, we'll just keep it that way. Perfectly fine, all good. Has a weird angle, changing that to 0 degrees, making the font size a little bit larger, and maybe having it bold. Yes, fantastic, looking great. Positioning that here. Again, I want to have it flush with that line, or maybe I want to, yeah, who knows. Doesn't matter. We'll have a closer look at how to set up all these sort of things. So that information is now placed on the master layout, which is called A3 landscape. To create a new layout, again, down here, there's a new layout button, and that window pops up. There's two options in the beginning, either using automatic book and subset ID, which I hardly ever use. What that does is that each layout will be assigned a specific code, like a number that's being displayed in the title of your layout. That's a way that helps you to understand the structure of the different layouts and kind of trace your plan within that structure. So maybe you might have 001 ground floor, 002 first floor, and so on. But I hardly ever use that. And if you don't want any number, you can just click here on custom ID and leave that field blank. Of course, here you could have something. I don't know if you want to have Very often in an office, each of your buildings has a code. It might be a number, it might be a series of letters. So you could have that in here. Let's say if I want to have like the architecture support kind of code in here, that will create a suffix in the title. And then the layout name, of course, we are working on a ground plan. Let's call it ground plan 1 to 100. And then choosing the size of your paper. Again, we want to choose the A3 landscape, which we just set up before. All good, leaving that as is. Great, perfect. So what you can see now is that in that reddish pen, all the elements that are placed on the master layout will show up in that red pen. It will print in black, don't worry. That's just to indicate that it's not located here and you actually can't select it, you can't change it, which obviously is what you want. And then as you can see in the title, it has added that kind of number that I had assigned to it. Down here, properties, you can manually change that. Of course, we don't want these numbers, so I'll just delete it. Perfectly fine. It's called ground plan 1 to 100. That sounds good. Nice. I like that. Now, how do we place a drawing onto that page? Let's just quickly go back to where we had these the ground floor that we have drawn. Now, that window is really good. You can do a lot of settings over here, but there's actually a slightly nicer view. If you go to Window, Palettes, and then navigate to Organizer, and there should be, for some reason, there's no shortcut assigned here, but you can, and I would recommend doing so because I use that window quite often. That's a bit of an extended view of what we have on the right hand side here, and most notably it's kind of like a split window type. So we have these 4 icons: project map, view map, layout book, publisher up here, and the second one only has 3 of them. Because the way how that works is that you go from one map view type to the next one. And how you can do that is by actually just dragging and dropping, or you can click on that save view option and it will create a kind of a child. It's not a copy, it's something, for lack of a better word, it's a child of that ground floor that's set up here in that project map thingy. So I'll just delete that, delete anyway, perfectly fine. Deleting that as well. Again, in your template, you probably have a really extensive list of presets here as well. I've just deleted all of them. If you're happy with them, please keep them, especially as you go along and you become a bit more advanced in ArchiCAD. Maybe that preset is really helpful for you, so please feel free to keep working with that. But other than that, I usually set them up myself. Now, what is the difference between a project map and the view map? Again, the view map is a child of the project map, and I usually draw in the view map as well. So let's just drag and drop. You can either, as with all of the tools, you can either set up all these things now and save it then, or you can just save it, create it, and you can always change the settings afterwards. That's what I usually do. I'll just drag and drop it. So now we have that child created. It is called ground floor, the same name, but probably we want to call it, let's call it ground floor 1 to, did we say 1 to 50? Yes, 1 to 50 ground floor. We go to settings and now we can manipulate all these things. We can define what kind of layer combination that we want to see, what kind of scale we want to have. Really important, the pen set, and all these sort of things that we will go through as we continue. 1 to 50 is already pre-assigned here, perfectly fine, so that looks like pretty much what we want. Okay, you can double click here as well and it will automatically go to that page. You can double click here, that's a weird first floor, not what we want, but again, that's how you navigate. It's the same way as you would navigate on that right hand side. So nice, perfectly fine. We've created that view map now for us. So just to show you that concept of parent and child and why we are drawing in here and not in the project map. That's all the very the bricks and bones kind of information of your building. Everything that is relevant on the ground floor, all the information, all the drawings will be within that kind of project map. And over here in the view map, you can be selective with what you want to be visible of all the information that's available. So for instance, you could change the layer combination, making sure that, for instance, you don't want to show the furniture. So you can create another child of ground floor that has the same information, but without the layers of furniture being toggled on. Or you can change scales as well. So let's create another one. And now, rather than calling it ground floor 1 to 500, I want to call it ground floor 1 to 50. I want to call it, maybe not even ground floor, maybe I'll call it site plan 1 to 500. And of course, the site plan is kind of is part of the ground floor. That's what is surrounding your building. So you don't want to create a completely new plan, but you want to build up on what you already have. So now going down here to the settings, I'm going to change the scale 1 to 500. And of course, I haven't drawn all of that, but you would probably change some of the layer combinations as well. We don't look at that right now, but of course, going to 1 to 500. Okay, so now you can see changing that scale has actually an effect on certain elements. So the line width changes. Yes, because the width of your pencil at a scale of 1 to 500 is different than on 1 to 50. And as you can see, if I'm navigating between them, these kind of settings are defined in these views. As opposed to here, I'm just toggling in between floors. And later on, once I've set up all these sort of things, I'm not using them anymore. I'm actually just navigating in that view map kind of setup. And yeah, really, really helpful, because everything I'm doing in that ground floor 1 to 50 will automatically be included in all the other children of that story that's originated from that zero ground floor. So let's assume, I don't know, for some reason I forgot some walls. I'll just draw something, doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be right or anything. Perfectly fine, I forgot that. You will see it's appearing now as well, because the same amount of information is available. But of course, we don't want that. That's not right. Ground floor 1 to 50. Now we can place that drawing if we're happy. Like, looks the way we want it. Yes, it's perfectly fine. So we can choose the view plan, view map over here, choosing the layout over here, and again, dragging and dropping that onto our plan that we want. I've already made a layout before. I called it ground floor 1 to 50, and then there's a second one. I call it the one that we had just created, which is called ground plan 1 to 100. That's a good thing actually, that we can see the differences. I'll probably have to rename them for practical reasons. Don't bother about that. So yes, closing that one, I'm going to have a look at my layouts. So nice, okay, so that one is now positioned here. As you probably remember, or maybe I have to start here, with all these tools, that placement of that drawing is a tool, just as like the wall tools and everything. So you can go into that settings dialog. And as you probably remember, we were drawing and setting up that plan in 1 to 50. And of course, we are now here in the ground floor 1 to 100 layout. So yes, you can set up a new view plan and create a proper view for a 1 to 100 ground plan. And that's, to be honest, that's the way that it should be, because as you have seen before, the line width of each of the elements is affected by the scale. But sometimes things have to go a bit faster. So if you go into that settings window again, you can change the drawing scale, okay, and it will do that for you. It just means that certain like line weights, text size and all that stuff is not affected by scale the same way. If that works for you, perfectly fine, just do that. Now we have an odd kind of a title bar on the bottom. I don't really want that. Going in here, if you navigate to one of these subsections here, you can just press on it. Built-in drawing title. No, we want no title. Perfectly fine. Okay. And that kind of drawing square, again, that uses the same kind of function of the way you can manipulate it as with other drawing tools. So we can actually cut it, and then we can also rotate the plan if we want to any size and position it the way that we want it. But maybe we just want to keep it as is with north facing up. That's looking perfectly fine. Nice, I like that. That's a, was it 1 to 100? Let's double check. 1 to 100. Yes, so that would be probably something you want to put on your layout here as well. I hate when that happens, but yes, 1 to 100, perfectly fine. And to be honest, on our master layout, I probably want to have the information that this is an A4 portrait. I think that's really crucial to know, because if I export it and I want to print it out, and obviously want to make sure that I have the right sizes, the right scaling when I print it. So I think that's really important. So I'm going to place that here, and the same here, copy paste onto the A3 as well. Just arranging it at some type. A3 landscape. That's what it is. Nice. So going back here, A4 portrait, 1 to 100, so that I have the most important information. Now you can actually copy that sort of information as well. You can go into the ground plane 1 to 50. I'm quickly deleting that. Let's assume we've only just created that by going down here, creating a new layout, naming it, all the file, etc. And we'll copy paste it in here. And now, of course, you can change it back to 1 to 50, what it used to be, so that we have the actual ground plan. Again, it doesn't really fit on my layout, so I probably have to move it around and whatnot. There we go. Looking good. And changing the scale down here as well. These sort of things you can actually use auto text, so you don't have to manually change that, which is really, really good, because adjusting these sort of things, you forget about it. But we'll have a look at that later on. One of the things I also just noticed that it's covering that line. So because my JPEG that I imported has a white background, that's showing up as white and it's covering that line. So one thing is actually you can either cut it out, cut away that corner if you want to, looking much, much nicer. So yes, there we are. Perfect. Now saving it. Again, that is the publisher, that last one. And again, we will go to Window, Palettes, Organizer, opening that thing up and choosing the, what is it called? The layout book on the left side and the publisher set on the right hand side. The good thing, if you are structuring your project all within that test project thingy, and once you have linked that all the new plans that you're creating will automatically pop up here as well, because you have already kind of created a parent between these two settings, so they will duplicate everything. That's a good thing. And now what is important is that here you can drag and drop things. Now you see what happens. It creates in a new line, it creates that plan. That means that's kind of an individual kind of plan. Deleting anyway, yes. But again, if you were to have like a folder or just as a test project and you create add shortcut, that's what it's doing, that kind of linking thing. That's really that's very helpful to know. If you have a folder with multiple plans that you all want to be structured together, use that add shortcut and not the drag and drop kind of function. Only crucial in that kind of action here. Deleting it, we don't need it. That's a bit it's a bit hard to get an overview, but let's assume we want to publish only the ground floor 1 to 100. That's the thing that we want to print out. Now up here you have that tiny arrow, one level up, that refers to one level up in that kind of setting thingy. And as you saw before, again, I'm deleting all of these, I don't need them. We will create them at some point ourselves and see the differences. Now that's a publisher set. You can create different publisher sets that go to different location on your computer, for instance, or that they is a predefined setting that you will publish different types of files, like a DWG or a DXF or something, or a PDF, of course. So yes, we want to have, let's call it exporting PDF. That's one of our settings. And down here you can see there's a very small arrow hidden away saying save files. Yes, you probably want to do that unless you have a printer hooked up to your laptop or your computer, but I always do save files because I want the PDF and I'll print it from there. And then here, publishing properties, I would keep it at all the time and create a real folder structure, which means if you are setting up folders and an organizing kind of structure in your publishing or layout book, when you publish your PDFs, your browser or your navigator on it, whether you have a Mac or a PC, will create the same folder structure accordingly. So once you get used to navigating your plans in ArchiCAD, it's really helpful to find things in the same structure on your, kind of creating a digital twin of those publishing properties. So I keep it a create a real folder structure, and then you can just click on browse and select the path of where you want to save it to. Just clicking quickly browse, creating my desktop, perfectly fine, happy with it, yes. So yeah, all is set up. We can double click onto exporting PDF. That brings us to that kind of sub menu. And now, as we've said before, we want to publish ground floor 1 to 100. Now here we have some more properties, just in case, if you want to reassure ourselves. The format, you can choose different file formats, but we want to keep it at PDF. That's what we want. Document options, there's some bit more elaborate options as well if you want to have it black and white, grayscale. Color, of course, is fine for now, all good. And then I sometimes forget about it. Let me see, click on here. Yes, I have a feeling that by default it has a layouts in current issue selected. So if I were to click one and publish, it actually, oh no, I think it by default it has entire set. So let's assume you have like 50 different PDFs here, layouts sitting here, and you only want ground floor 1 to 100. If you were to click publish now, it actually exports all the 50 layouts, which might not be the desired outcome. So what you want to do, double check, select the one that you want, go here to selected items, yes, that looks good, click on publish, there we go, close. And you will now find that PDF within the folder that you have selected as an output folder. And you can print it out now, perfect. So yeah, takes a bit of practice to get used to that kind of structure, and it's not as intuitive in the beginning. Maybe come back to that video and have a look at it again and go through these steps one by one, and you will get much more familiar with how it all works later on. Perfect.